I was originally going to create this video privately, or, just simply write up a document outlining my suggestions to the awesome development team at Embark Studios on how they can improve their spectator experience and obviously private matches for you guys, the community. But I feel like I kind of want to create something that can be, I'd say, referenced to in the future. And obviously, for you guys watching at home, well, why is this video even important? Well, as the finals continue to roll out updates, I'm more than certain that the average player base will increase over time. And then obviously with that comes the need for not just esports, but also things like community events. I mean, think of THiiXY Rivals, right? That was a community event that had a lot of, I'd say, frustrations. I think you can agree for the viewer. There was some missed opportunities occurring because of how complex the game can really be when you break it down. And to be fair to Twitch, they actually focus on the streamer's point of view for the viewer, and I actually think that's pretty cool because, obviously if anything happens, you get to see the streamer's reaction to the gameplay, but the format of Cash Out itself is actually really difficult to track. One of the examples is, I guess, imagining as if 2 cash outs and 2 fights were happening at the exact same time, and if you were an observer, what point of view should you focus on, and why is that perspective the most important? So really, you can't just pass on these puzzles to solve to any observer coming from, let's say, a typical 5v5 shooter, right? There's 2 actions happening at the exact same time, and the viewer, which is obviously you awesome Chad supporting me, much love, shout out to you guys, want to have a story develop, right? What happened at the start of the game? What's the challenges that a certain team is facing? And why should we be watching a certain team's point of view in a specific time? Obviously, there's, a lot more questions for it, but those ones are quite core and very important to each match. Now, obviously, I don't have any, professional experience to back myself up in making this video, okay? But I've obviously been using the spectator mode, and I've been obviously using the private match lobbies, I think probably a little bit more than the average player, running my FPL league, which is every Friday for Division A. And I've also been very interested in kind of how production is ran for events and titles, obviously like Counter-Strike, and obviously then how can we as a community help translate that over to the finals. But obviously there's more of a focus within production that you, the viewer, directly sees live, and that's actually called observing. Observing is essentially the person that works alongside production who controls what the viewer would see during a match. One of the most notorious observers in esports is Sapphire, who's actually been through a ton of experience across multiple titles such as Counter-Strike and Valorant, and honestly, if Embark were watching this video, I can probably say that she would provide a ton of value and insights for you into building a great observer tool outside of this video. But obviously this video is mainly going to be from the perspective of the community. I've asked you guys on stream, I've asked other creators, shout out to Waltz that also does casting in the finals as well, to help provide me some pointers towards a better starting point for a spectator tool and private matches. So firstly, we're going to answer the question, what makes a good viewer experience? Well, obviously, first of all, the casters are the forefront of the action. You need to have a kind of a solo or duo caster which just really has that passion, that drive for the game. And then obviously on top of that, another thing is of course the production quality, right? Being able to, let's say, bring up some certain statistics, like we see in those big esports matches, can really show you as a viewer on why a certain match is so important. Like, for example, who's the current one to watch in a league or a tournament? And this stuff comes obviously from mainly, syncing up the game for a way that I'll probably scare some people at Embark. Get ready. It's a ton of work, but it's 3 letters, and that is called an API. Basically, this is a tool which sends data to lines of code at, let's say, for example, at the end of a match, which then allows you to manipulate it in any way you want. So, for example, titles such as Rainbow Six Siege, Valorant, Fortnite, all basically have some sort of match reporting feature, which is then stored and able to be accessed on, for example, third-party websites. Now, in some esports games, that data can actually be fed live, so it's during live feed and live replay, so that people can put, for example, custom overlays on top of what they see to give it a much more nicer experience, and again, kind of add a bit more of that branding on from the person that is running the tournament themselves. Now, obviously, if Embark would prefer everything to be done and displayed in-house rather than like on a third-party website, again, Counter-Strike is another example where you have, third-party websites where you can actually track the game as it's being played, then obviously we could say that's fine. But I think that if you did have this Embark, people do want to see their match history, in my opinion, and the games that they have recently played and how they did and how other people did in their lobby. And providing an API, for just private matches, if that's how you want to do it, shouldn't be too expensive to host. I mean, worst case scenario, maybe a way that we can actually export the match data to CSV, for example, because right now, just to explain to Embark or like you guys for viewers and how I run my FPL league, I have to literally send a screenshot of my lobby to ChatGPT to then scan the image, translate it to text, and then I have to take the CSV and then paste it in Google Sheets in order for the data to be updated live on stream, and then I have to refresh the data in OBS manually so that people can see the changes. This is again why people, as I said before at the start, like Sapphire or the other observer is Prius, why they're kind of so important on, you know, having the direction of what's shown on screen, right? Because when you translate over to the finals, as you guys know, you have obviously 3v3 fights, you know, occur at the same time as another 3v3 fight. This is kind of more so where the expensive tech production comes in. Obviously, there could be things like, you know, video feed replay features, picture-in-picture. You could have 10 screen setups, which actually links the video feeds of each player. So then you could, you know, put the player perspective on at the exact same time, or vice versa. But I would say that with spectators only being limited to one slot right now in the finals lobbies, it would pretty much be awesome for Embark to kind of expand out to 2 or 3 spectators per match. So then what I could do is then run like an overall perspective on like a second PC, my main feed on my main PC, and then possibly swap between someone else observing in-game with like a replay function on, so then we don't miss out on the action. Okay, so what can Embark improve on? Well, we're going to go and head to the first thing people would see, and that is the lobby experience. I'm super grateful for Embark adding private matches in, but the lobby, in my opinion, kind of has a lot of improvements needed to make, and I've kind of a few suggestions on how they can fix this. Overall, I think Embark know by now that obviously we would really love some more customization into private matches. I've spoken to top players in my podcast, such as NetX and Piggy, in what Embark can do to kind of improve the experience, and mainly the biggest ask for those players is actually for customization on the map's variants. These are things like the ability to change daytime, nighttime, disable suspended structures, and, you know, enable or disable the sand event on Las Vegas. I just think that those things are really helpful in order to kind of have the match as fair as possible, or not really fair as possible, just kind of nice as possible for the whole community, I think is the best way to put it. Of course, if we go obviously in more depth, right, then we're heading towards something different to private matches, which is then called custom games. Custom games is for another video, so if you guys want me to do an in-depth breakdown on what I think should happen for custom games, then like the video so I know it's a good topic. Further customization could be things like barrel spawn rates. Maybe we want to have more or less or no barrels in the arena. Or another thing is event modifiers, right? Maybe we want to bring back Dead Go Boom for private matches. We could change or have the ability to change the coin amounts for respawning, if there should be a minus amount on that, or if people should only have 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 coins in a match. Maybe even be able to change the match time. Obviously, I know that you guys are worried about like the whole how many servers are running, so you could cap it to like, you know, 30-minute match time, for example. But also as well, it actually helps the Easter egg community to be able to kind of have more time in the private match without needing to keep refreshing it every 15 minutes, getting everyone back in the lobby, or just relaunching the lobby again and everyone has to load back in. Another feature is, of course, that damn lobby ID being shown on screen. This is one of the biggest curses to people that do streaming or content creation. You guys haven't given us an option to hide it, okay? Shout out to my THiiXY gang. There's been a ton of scenarios and times where I've just kind of been dumb myself and then like leaked the code to my chat as well, so Embarco, please fix. Next is, of course, the team organization feature to add into the lobby, with the option of the lobby leader to, let's say, lock and move the players, while still having the option to, let's say, have the random team assignments like we do now. Also, it would be really cool to be able to have weapon bans. So, for example, we can go in and choose what weapons cannot be selected in-game, very similar to how you guys ran, let's say, the Smoking Guns event. This is actually going to be super helpful because some people, for example, have a gentleman's agreement to not use a certain weapon, but if it's official and in-game, then it's really helpful. I think something else that would be helpful is the lobby leader actually being able to change and rename the teams. Just for like, I would say the bigger event organizers, I know that obviously we have Breakout Esports for one of them, so then basically they can kind of like see and pronounce the team names that have been actually filled in officially, rather than it being like, oh yeah, this game, guys, the live wires are here. Because if a viewer is going to be watching, let's say, for more than 4 or 5 hours, which, you know, it should be on the very extremity of that, one game, the team that they're watching is called the Live Wires and they're supporting, and then the next game, you know, they're the Ultra Res and the team they're not supporting is the Live Wires, right? So it's way more helpful for a spectator to see the correct team name instead of the current ones in the finals. Again, this is only for private matches. You don't have to change this for the public lobbies because obviously private matches should be a bit more official, and people will have less room to abuse those certain things. Next up is obviously focusing in on server information as well. I think it would actually be really helpful to kind of see what the server is currently set for the lobby, with actually the option to change it without needing to go out of the lobby into our settings, relaunching the lobby to make sure that the server settings is actually synced across if it was actually like Europe to NA servers as well. Some extra features would be, I would say, actually a ready check system in place with the ability for the leader to actually force start the lobby. But what I would do is actually have this added instead of the, there's like a 20-second cooldown players get when they choose their loadout. I think that personally that is just too short of a time, especially when, the players are playing these private matches very casually, or for example, let's say we're doing like a casual tournament, right? And there's a lot of streamers there, they don't really understand what's going on, and then they're put into this screen with, heavy, like, medium and stuff. They only have 20 seconds to kind of understand what their builds and loadouts are and check with their team. So I kind of think that it's actually really helpful to be able to have an unlimited time, a ready check system, and then again, the leader can force start the lobby in case people are just taking way too long. Okay, so that's the lobby experience, right? So we're now going to obviously head into game and discuss what tools and arsenal that spectators could have to further improve the experience for you guys. So in the background is some gameplay from my FPL community matches, which you can join. Just letting you know, guys, every Friday is Division A if you get in, and then Sunday we're just doing some fun games for viewers. So if you want to check out my streams on Sundays on Twitch, then of course it'd be awesome to have you guys there. But regardless, we have a few things here in our UI that can I feel like that could be improved. First of all, that big damn bar at the bottom of the screen, dude, it's just too annoying for a viewer. I mean, I get the motivation for it, right? It provides the team name in the bottom left, the color representing the team, the spectator player's name, and then obviously the options in the bottom right for what the observer can change. But the viewer sees that, right? And it just doesn't really look great on my screen. I feel like you get rid of that and kind of change up the UI. I'm not saying that I know that that's not the end goal for you guys originally. You guys put this in probably. You squeeze this in under a massive time constraint, so I'm very grateful for that. But I'm just saying, at this moment in time, right, you guys can probably agree with me that it's not the best. Obviously, of course, we have the bottom left. We can see the spectated team's health, which is represented once again by the player we're currently spectated. Obviously, we can see their current weapon, gadgets, and specs with cooldowns. And on the top left of the screen, we can obviously see the team's money, position. And finally, we then have the top of the screen a compass. Kampai. No, I can't. Okay. I can't say compass, I'll just say compass. So I'll now compare this to what an observer would see in, let's say, Counter-Strike, for example, right? And you'll kind of notice that there's quite a few crucial components missing. So first of all, we don't have a mini-map or overview screen, meaning that we're kind of blind when determining the action from an overall experience or an overall perspective. This is not something that, you guys might need if you're a player per se in-game, because personally I actually really like how clean the finals is. But for a spectator point of view, having the option for an overview, a top-down view of the map is actually really helpful. Now, obviously, you guys might say, but THiiXY titles like Rainbow Six Siege don't have a mini-map, and I actually obviously agree with you that potentially in the finals we don't need an on-screen mini-map for the viewer. However, for an observer very specifically, it's super helpful being able to track where players are, when they'll fight, where their rotations are, again, especially in the finals. As you can see here, we have some point of views here from a Rainbow Six Siege observer and some other point of views from a Counter-Strike observer, and you can kind of see that they actually have an entire monitor dedicated to this task. That's how important this stuff is. So again, I feel like for Embark that customization would be really awesome. Maybe as a spectator we can have the ability to swap between, let's say, an overview screen, which might have like icons pop up over the player, so then we can kind of show those viewer rotations, or have on our other monitor just kind of tracking where players are, right? Or, again, that can be like the camera in game, or again you could switch the screen and you could have like a really nice little kind of like mini map kind of UI screen animated by like pressing a keybind, and then we can track players versus their map positioning, for example. Next up, the viewer that is watching the stream can't really see a nice breakdown of the player that is playing. This is actually something that's got like a kind of huge focus on when matches are being played out in a lot of esports games, because it's like, well, who are we watching, right? I think instead of the right side info of the screen and the left side info of the screen, etc., what we could do is we could actually have the player card in like the bottom center with like their stats, their HP and ammo, etc., with like kind of like smaller icons, because to us as a viewer, it's not really that important of it being displayed to as it is being displayed to in the perspective of a player, right? As you guys know, you have icons now for everything. You refresh that in Season 3, and the icons look really, really nice. And I think you can kind of leverage those icons to kind of like make like a nice, you know, player infographic in the middle. Again, I made some really rough designs, of course. It's not like, you know, me saying this is exactly how I want it to look, but just, again, just to help the visualization. Next up, we have no way to determine what the status or health is of the other players in the match. Again, I feel like we could have something on screen to add it in, or, for example, like a keybind that will reveal it. That's in Counter-Strike. Because, again, obviously that might be too cluttered, right, if we have it there the whole time. And, you know, maybe enable or disabling it for it to, like, pop on the screen or not. And, again, we can utilize those really nice UI elements you guys have had with the icons, just to kind of reduce that clutter. But even, like, some hints of, like, player cards would be awesome here, too. Or, you know, again, we can make it really minimalistic. Next up, we don't have the status of each cash-out phase or cash-out duration on screen. Now, this is a big one, because when you're spectating, obviously, again, as we've said before in this video, sometimes there's kind of two fights happening, right? And, you know, sure, there's an icon which moves around in the screen, and you can see, like, let's say, for example, cash out B in the background if that's being stolen or not. And you can also see in the top left for the red flashing indicator if that's happening. Those are quite cool, but I feel like for a spectator point of view, it would be nice to kind of have it maybe a bit more obvious, a bit more pronounced, and just kind of like have like a bit of a timeline, maybe. I don't know. I'm not too sure what people want to say in the comments here for this. Maybe we could keep that kind of the same, as it's not too bad, but I just feel like it can be improved a little bit more, especially because when the cash out is flashing, it's not really obvious to the viewer who is stealing, for example, right? I think that's like another huge point. And I think that if that isn't the case, there's UI elements, right, to track like the status and track the events. That would be huge for spectating. Some pop-ups or prompts on screen to show who has deposited the cash, or at least what team has done so. I know that obviously sometimes it does pop up, of course, with the white or red, white and red text, for example. But I just think it would be nice to have like a nice UI element for that. Again, obviously customization is super important here, right? Allow us to be able to disable or enable everything. Some spectators might not have agreed with some elements that I've spoken about to add into this video, right? But others might be like shaking their head like, yes, this is what we need. But for an overall, I just kind of think that these things would make up a great tool, or at least a foundation, right, for observing for esports or even just fun events, right? Just to help guide new viewers on the game, because during the Twitch Rivals event, they were kind of for the viewer experience and viewer experience. There wasn't much to do for that, and it kind of showed us how important it was to have, like, yeah, sure, we can have the streamer's POV, but also maybe have like different shots of the game, so that, you know, we can see things to help guide the viewer on what the heck's going on. I actually had some other things to mention as well. Key bindings, again, allow us to fully customize key bindings. Like, for example, like you could have the default was like rows 1, 2, 3, all the way to the minus to be able to instantly snap to other players' perspectives, and then something like the weird key, I'm just going to put on screen, I don't know what these keys are called, to snap to like cash out A or cash out B, or perhaps like another keybind to like rotate between some like really cool default camera scenes that you guys have set up, so we could press like a button, then it goes like a nice shot of like Kyoto, for example, and that would be like, you know, going straight to it. So yeah, as I said, there's lots of ways you can do it. Again, I just feel like being able to snap from like a player to a cash out station is actually really important, or at least actually highlight to us what player is stealing on the UI, so then we can actually snap to their POV, so we don't miss out on the action, for example. That would be sick, you guys, as well. So if anyone at home, if you're watching, you want to comment on, if Embark are actually watching this video and they're checking out the comment section, what would you guys want to see from the spectator mode for the finals? Feel free to share that in the comments, and if you want to see more breakdowns, please just give me a little like, maybe, just so I know that this video is a good one. But thank you guys for watching so much, as always. My name has been THiiXY, and I'll see you on the podium.